Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I'm your host, Willie Bragg, and today we have Angel Rivera, known as the Handsome Critic. He's with us, and why don't you introduce yourself, Angel?
Well, I'm Angel Rivera. I'm 36 years old from New Jersey, and I've been on YouTube for about since 2021, and I've done every job you can think of. I've been my hands mostly, and I'm just your regular average Joe, running my mouth about politics. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to and what I've done, etc. So.
Okay, all right. I do have to ask a question to Tommy and Warren, who are on the chat line. Do you guys hear a sound on my side or on Angel's side? Because I've been having audio difficulties lately. I just want to make sure that they can hear. I guess they can hear us. If they would say there's no sound on either side, there weren't.
Yeah,
I'm guessing we're fine. So
yeah, I'm guessing so.
Okay, I guess we'd be warned if we were talking and there was no sound from either side. So I guess all is well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes. So I of course I follow you on Twitter and I follow you on YouTube. Explain your political evolution, and I guess your political evolution and what got you into the online politics.
Well, that's a lot. Well, I mean, I had a YouTube channel like 10 years ago where I would talk about sports and I would talk about stuff like that, but I gave up on it quickly. And I love talking about politics on Twitter. I mean, I've been on Twitter since like 2009, so since the beginning, and you can see my political evolution. You go from the beginning all the way to today. It's like it's right there for everybody to see. I went from being your normie, average Obama Democrat to being a Bernie supporter to today now, where I'm cynical about politics and everything. So yeah, so that's you can see everything from me, and I just love talking about politics, and I got into YouTube. I went back to YouTube just because I happened to be tweeting back and forth with Indy and Reef and those guys, and they put me in a DM chat, and I was convinced to start doing videos again, and here I am ever since.
All right. Yeah, I think that many of us had, the evolution, and I think that maybe the Bernie campaign is where it kind of, I think a lot of the new wave of independent voices that we have today here, and there's been like a split and a split and a split and a split, and everybody's gotten factional and everything, and just kind of. I look around and I see a lot of infighting and everything, but but I look at the top, and I see a lot of the people who are on the top who did a lot of finger pointing over the years, and it's kind of nice seeing the chickens coming home to roost, so to speak. When I see Anna Kasparian and all that, I mean, she's been very self righteous all over the years and all of that, and now it's kind of nice as having her feel. I'm looking at her. It's like, okay, now you know how it feels like to be smeared the way you guys at TYT has smeared other folks to your left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing that for years, and now all of a sudden, when they kind of, I don't know if you call it shifting to the right or shifting to the center on at least on crime and on trans issues. Now all that reactionary politics they've been doing, so now that monster is turning on them, and now all of a sudden they don't know what to do with themselves. So they're like, "Oh no, I mean, come on, guys, we have to have debate and conversation. We can disagree with each other. It's okay, right?" Even though for years they've been attacking people on their left who disagree with them slightly, Jimmy Dores of the world, or Glenn Greenwald's, or Matt Taibbi's, or people like that. So now all of a sudden the monster is being turned on them, and now they don't like what they built. So now they're trying to run away from it.
Exactly. And it didn't have to be this way. And I think that, and I've actually had a discussion, believe it or not, as I was waking up before dinner, before I was freshening up before the show.
Hmm.
I have a friend that lives in the New York City area, and trying to convince him to go into this online left fields, because I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got an
Hmm.
audience waiting for him, and if I think somebody's got an audience waiting for them, I try to urge them to go ahead and do it. Especially if I think they got something valid to say,
Yeah.
and so in doing so. And the thing about it is, I was going to make a point, and I got the point I was going to make. But I do try to urge people. I do try to. Oh, yes, yes. Having a discussion about this online left thing. I mean, talked about the evolution. I think that this whole TY thing started when they got that money from Jeffrey Katzenberg in 2016, and
Oh yeah.
my suspicion is that they saw, when I think the TYT, not perfect prior to 2016, but obviously way better than it is now today. And I think they saw something that they figured they had to go and get under control, especially during the Bernie campaign in 2016. So I think that's where the 20 million, my conspiracy theory, that's where the $20 million dollar endowment came up. And I think that it was that Clinton money was there to kind of put a leash on TYT. They at that time they saw them as a threat, and it worked for the Katzenberg money, because they were able to tone them down, and so they started sounding way more centristy, and they got into Russiagate, and and of course nobody likes Trump, but you can't. Trump bad gets old real quick.
Well, yeah, but the thing of it is, Cenk Uygur's always been a capitalist. So when he sees an opportunity to make money, he's going to do it. So after Trump's election, they saw these Trump videos are getting a ton of views, so let's just keep doing it. And Russiagate is too. Let's keep doing it. And that's why they ended up doing it for years and years and years and years, because it worked for them. They started making money, and the views went back up, because 10 years ago, you used to get nearly 1 million views for video. Now they barely get a fraction of that whenever they upload. So it's like, they're like, yeah, let's take it. Let's just Trump all day and all night, and Russiagate, everything. They bought into every conspiracy theory in Russiagate. It was like ridiculous, man. I mean, how could you fall for this stuff? And they did, and they made a lot of money. So that's what Cenk Uygur cares about.
Yeah, I am same with David Pakman. I used to like David Pakman, but
Hmm.
again, David Pakman is. Today, we know that about Glenn Greenwald and Tulsi Gabbard, and we know that they're really tied in with Russia. It will be something along those lines. And I said something along the lines of, "This is why I stopped watching your show, David," on Twitter. And
Yep.
he responded to me. He responded to me. He said,
Oh.
So you stop watching my show because something accurate that was made about these folks regarding Russia? Well, you do you. I mean, it was just like, okay. I thought it was funny, his reaction. I wasn't even mad at him. It was kind of a snarky reaction I would expect from David Packman.
Well,
Yeah,
that's on, you know.
yeah,
I mean, he's getting views on that, so he's going to do the same thing, that Cenk Uygur does and all these other, YouTubers do. So they have millions of subscribers, and they're going to keep doing what they do in order to make that check, so get that ad revenue. So it's like, not
yeah,
surprised.
yeah, and I think that between, and I was still a TYT viewer until that drama broke out 2 years ago when Annika Sperring had her little meltdown. You know,
Hmm.
you know, right there and then, that was, I was like, okay, y'all lost me. Between Forced to Vote, I think the wake up call for me back then was the Forced to Vote, their rejection of, and the smearing of Aaron Mate, and
Hmm.
the whole thing with the Jimmy Dore thing and everything. That right there was like, well, they're not really the left the way I view the left, and I just kind of wash my hands from them. And
Yeah.
now I'm pretty much anti TYT these days.
Oh,
So
that was awful. From the forced to vote thing to smearing Jimmy Dore, Anna Kasparian blackmailed Jimmy Dore with
and it
sexual
was
harassment
blackmail.
charges, and it just went on. It just nonsense after nonsense. And now today they're getting a fraction of the views they used to, and it's their own damn fault. Can't blame anybody but themselves.
Yeah, and which is weird because when she's lost her temper in the last year, I've seen her lose her temper on some policy issues. The stuff
Yeah.
that she kind of lost her temper on were things that were justified to lose your temper on. However, I'm thinking, okay, it's a little too late. You were too much of a team player all along, and you urge people to not support force to vote, and you urge people not to support things like the general excuse me, the Medicare for all marches, or
Oh yeah.
don't do any direct action. Just be well behaved little Bidenites, and everything is going to be a okay. And
Yeah.
because if you engage in actions that are actually a left wing street action, for some reason that conflates that as being pro Trump. I can't figure that out.
I don't know either. I mean, it's like really, it's yeah, Medicare for all marches and all those direct action things from the left, and they consider that to be pro-Trump. I don't get it either, but it's Trump derangement syndrome. Everything that the left doesn't or liberals don't agree with, all of a sudden is pro-Trump, and it's everything's Trump's fault, and he's bad guy, orange man bad, blah blah blah. So it makes no sense to me either.
And their actions have pushed me a couple of things for my evolution. And I really quick. I started out as a liberal Democrat, and
Hmm.
I turned socialist pretty early on. But even as a socialist, I was kind of a standard DSA style, you know. Social democrat basically, and not that I'm opposed to social democracy, but I love reform, but once you get people like AOC in there and the squad, and you got Bernie around, don't be there for a window show. Go ahead and push for those reforms. Don't play nice with the Democratic leadership. If you're going to go work inside the Democratic Party, don't play nice with the Democrats. Don't play patty cake with them. Be just go and be a royal pain to their ass. That's what you got to do. But they figure, oh, I just want a seat at the table. I don't want a seat at the table. A seat at the table means that nothing gets done.
Yep. But that's the whole Justice Democrat thing and the squad. It was all doomed to fail from the word jump. I mean, Kyle Kalinske and Cenk Uygur are like, oh, guys, Democrats, it'll be fine. I mean, let's just reform the party. We can do this with this outside organization. And, we can run all these progressives and they'll win elections because of the polling. The polling says they're all progressive and the American people are progressive and they'll vote for them. No matter if red state, blue state, purple state, whatever. And what did they do? They elected a few squad members and it turns out that they were all just Democrats and they were all liberals and they're all party insiders today for the most part. AOC especially just endorsed Biden for no reason
Uh-huh.
on that Pod Save America show. The Obama people that did that do that show,
They're worse
and
than the Young Turks. They're worse than the Young Turks even now.
yeah, yeah, and the entire squad is. I know AOC's endorsed Biden, but I don't know about the squad. Bernie
They
has
will.
too.
They will.
Bernie has too. Bernie endorsed even before AOC did. It's like, oh, really? It's like over a year for the election, and you're going to endorse this president who's been nothing but just establishment hack, and he broke the railroad strike. We forgot about that. He's sending cluster bombs to Ukraine, which is a war crime.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure you saw this on Twitter, but Biden has called up 3,000 troops from selective service to go to Europe.
That haven't heard, but
It just broke. It just broke right before I went on Twitter.
Okay.
He signed an order saying sending 3,000 extra troops to Europe. It seems like that's another escalation with Russia, obviously. But I just broke on Twitter right before we came on air. So
if they really want to get Trump back in the White House, everything that Biden is doing is going to get Biden back into the White House. Trump back into the White House, or even worse, Ron DeSantis. And that's exactly what happens when Democrats do what they do. They pave way for George W. Bush or Donald Trump.
Mhm.
Because once the Democrats are in power, they're either they either are too scared to govern or they're too bought off. It's one or the other. And for AOC to sit there and to, it just with AOC, I get a little angry with her because I was a big time supporter of her years ago,
Mhm.
and she came in there. We were going to go and raise this ruckus and all of this, and I'm probably more angry with her than anybody in this whole equation, more than any other member of the squad.
Mhm.
I'm probably more angry with her, and maybe in some ways maybe feel sorry for her to the extent that she's got the camera in front of her all the time. It's understandable. And I'm not trying to be objectifying women, but she's pretty. And that's
Mhm.
pretty what it comes down to. She's attractive, and so the camera's always in front of her, and it follows her.
Yeah.
Same, and so it follows her around, and she's the center of attention all the time. But here's the thing: she'll go and make a badass speech in the House about why this bill is really bad, blah, 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 blah. And then she'll go and vote for a horrible bill.
She'll vote for it.
And she'll vote for a bill that she said that she's against.
She's just virtue signaling. Like what she wants in the squad is these clips to go viral on Twitter of them jumping up and down and talking about how terrible bills are and stuff, and they'll get it retweeted and they'll get the "Yas Queen" type reaction from the left, and then they don't realize that she voted for the bills, and so the rest of the squad. So it's like nobody realizes people either don't have time to look it up, or they're too lazy, or they trust their politicians way too much, and which is why they get away with it and they get the viral clip they want, and they move on to the next topic to virtue signal about.
And it irritates me. Now, when it came to the rail strike, Bernie did offer a contract drafted a contract that offers 7 sick leave days. I'm not going to fault him on that one. He's still I get upset with Bernie these days, and I'm out of the Bernie cult for the most part, but he still shows a little sign of rebellion occasionally. AOC voted to bust the rail strike.
Mm-hmm.
And what socialist votes to vote a rail strike?
Mm-hmm. None.
Rashida Tlaib did correctly. She voted to at least she did vote to for the for the with the rail workers did not vote to bust the rail strike. I'm going to give her a little leeway on that one. But the
Okay.
AOC,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I'm not surprised by that. I mean, she she wants to be the next Nancy Pelosi. She wants to be the Speaker of the House one day. So, or she wants to run for higher office, depending on what she decides to do. But if she votes to not to she voted against breaking the rail strike, then the party bosses get very angry with her, and she cries. I'm not sure. Remember that one time when Nancy Pelosi yelled at her and she cried on the House floor.
yeah, it was over the Iron Dome.
Yeah, she voted present. No, she didn't vote. She didn't vote for. She didn't vote against it. She voted present, and she still got yelled at by Nancy Pelosi. And she turned around, started just crying her eyes out when she got yelled at once. And then she changed her vote to yes, I think, or something like that. So, yeah, so that's what she is. She's too either the best. If you want to be charitable to her, she's weak. But
Oh,
me,
she's a wimp.
yeah, but for me, it's like no, I don't buy it. It's like you're doing this because you want to be an next Nancy Pelosi. You want in. You want to be a party boss. You don't just want to be an outsider.
I mean, I think that maybe I'm going to be charitable. In 2018, I think maybe she wanted to make change, but once she got in there and she got a little bit of the taste of what it's like to be in there, and the cocktail parties and the cocktail parties that she goes to,
Mm-hmm.
the
The
access
Met.
to stream media, and that's another thing that pisses me off. I mean, as bad as TYT is, she won't even go on TYT, but she'll go on Pod Save America.
She betrayed the two people who helped her get in Congress the most, Kyle Kalinske and Cenk Uygur. She won't go on
Yeah,
either of the shows.
yeah. Well, Kyle Kalinske. I used to listen to Kyle Kalinske a lot, and in fact, don't hold this against me. He kind of inspired me to do this program, but I mean, he has
Yeah.
gone downhill. I mean,
Oh yeah.
over his politics isn't bad, but it's just he wants to work inside the Democratic Party, and I do think Crystal corrupted him.
Well, I mean, Crystal's worth what? $50 million last or something
Yeah.
like that. So she's extremely wealthy. Kyle's a millionaire too. I mean, he gets what 40,000 views of videos, so that's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in just ad revenue, not even including the Patreon he has. So yeah, he's wealthy too. So he's not going to. If you're, I mean, let me backtrack. You remember back in 2018, he wrote the platform for Justice Democrats, and I specifically remember this because he bragged about it. He wrote the platform Justice Democrats, and one of the things in there was they needed to run third parties. And now he's against third parties. If you notice, he's changed his tune on that.
Crystal, I think it's because Crystal
Yeah,
is
I
a
mean, it's
Democrat.
part of the reason. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a large part of the reason and everything. But in my old defense of Kyle, unlike the others, unlike Majority Report, unlike TYT, he does kind of criticize AOC a little bit. I mean, a little bit.
yeah. That's putting him in the best light possible. Every once in a blue moon, he criticizes AOC, but even then, even if he criticizes her in that video, he finds a way to defend her anyway. So
You're absolutely
it's like
right.
half and half. So it's like, oh yeah, AOC did this wrong, but don't worry, guys, she's still on her side, or don't worry, she's nominally still on her side. So she's not. And there was this one, like he changed the definition of corruption. There's like personal corruption and their financial corruption. The personal corruption AOC definitely engages in because she wants to rise within the party. So that's personal corruption. She's like, oh, if you do what we tell you to do, you'll rise within the party eventually. So that's personal corruption. Kyle tried to pretend that didn't exist, and he just only corruption is financial corruption.
Yeah. I
So
would say. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just insane that that every time he finds a way to defend AOC and the squad, and even Biden in like the weirdest ways.
God,
He's he's done a few videos recently, which I'm going to talk about a couple of them tomorrow on my stream, where he just did a video today talking about how he wishes Joe Biden did cocaine in the White House.
I think it was trying to be snarky,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah, but it's still ridiculous though. It's like he's trying. It could be that, but at the same time, I'm like, really, dude? You want him to do cocaine in the White House? Okay. Then he did another video. What was it? I'm gonna talk about it tomorrow, but I can't remember right now. But oh, he did a video where he excused Joe Biden of verbally abusing his staff. That article came out recently.
I
He's like,
think his worst video was the one where there was a town hall. It was the town hall with the I cannot the two gentlemen, Jose Vega, and I cannot pronounce the other guy's name.
oh, what the AOC town hall?
Yeah, it was the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, from last year. I think it was like last year.
Jose
And
Vega and somebody else. I forget his name
yeah,
too. But
and and they were shouting her down and everything, and they were totally justified to shout her down and everything. Because I mean, okay, they vote. She won't do anything to give us health care, but she'll go and vote for money to go to Ukraine to fund neo Nazis.
Still
You
do
know,
that.
I mean, and I'm tired of people saying that you're against this war in the Ukraine, that you're somehow supporting the far right. I oppose the war in the Ukraine because I oppose the far right inside of the Ukraine. It's not being I'm not pro Putin or pro Russia, but I do oppose the right wing in the Ukraine, and it is a right wing government. It is a right wing government, more right wing than in Russia.
Yeah. Zelensky banned political parties. He canceled the elections that's supposed to take place later this year because of the war. It was his excuse, but I mean, we all know, he's just authoritarian. He canceled. I mean, he canceled the elections. He banned a bunch of political parties. He's done a lot. But meanwhile, America will say, well, we have to defend Ukraine for democracy purposes. Russia's trying to take over Ukraine and blah, blah, blah. But it's all bullcrap. It's ultimately, they need another war. They need another forever war for the military industrial complex. That's what this is about. Another forever war so they can make their billions. And then a lot of the politicians are also invested in defense contractors. So they get their money too from the dividends. So yeah, everybody gets paid and we all get screwed. So that's how that works.
And it seems to be just like after 9/11, where there was anti-Muslim sentiment. Today's like it seems to be acceptable to be anti-Russian, and there is like ethnic cleansing going on against the ethnic Russians in the Donbass regions.
That's another thing.
Since 2014, it's been happening.
Yeah.
And the neo-Nazi element. Now the mainstream media are recognizing there might be a Nazi. They're whispering there might be a Nazi problem.
They know. The media knows. That's the thing. Before this war, they talked about the neo-Nazi influence in the Ukrainian government for years. The media knows about this. As soon as the war started, that's all gone. Now they pretend that the Ukrainians are freedom fighters and they're just fighting the evil, bad Putin, and he's the one that's bad. It's not the neo-Nazi presence in Ukraine. It's not the fact that they overthrew Yanukovych in 2014. Ignore all that. That's not, they're to me, they're doing a genocide of Russians in Ukraine. It's super obvious. It's a genocide. I just call it what it is. It's a genocide. They banned the Russian Orthodox Church. They raiding the churches for no reason. They're bombing the shit out of ethnic Russians in the eastern part of Ukraine, just murdering them. So it's a genocide. They banned the Russian language too. It's another thing Zelensky's done. So it's a genocide of Russians. That's what they're doing in the eastern part of Ukraine.
And they celebrate Stefan Bandera, who is
who's a Nazi.
He's a Nazi. Yeah,
he's a Nazi collaborator. Yeah, with Hitler and them.
Yeah, my friend Jamar Jabari, who I don't actually know who he is. He has
I know him.
Yeah, great podcaster. He told me recently that Poland were just calling them out on Ukraine out on them celebrating Stepan Bandera because I mean Polish people died in the Ukraine because of Stepan Bandera, along with the Jewish people and some other group. I don't know how many groups were killed under Bandera, but there was a. I mean, he was a scum, low life asshole, and they're celebrating him and had streets and boulevards named after him, and all of that, and and then all of a sudden, somebody will say, "Well, Nick Fuentes is supporting Russia." Well, okay, Richard Spencer supports the Ukraine. Touche.
Yeah, and what I'm concerned about, and I'm speculating here, but after this Ukraine war is over, hopefully it's over without World War III. But let's say there's no World War III and it's over. My concern is that the neo Nazis in Ukraine will turn around and try to attack us,
I
like the Mujahideen did, because the Mujahideen turned into Al Qaeda, and then they attacked us on September 11th. That's my concern. That's speculation on my part, but it's possible that once the war is over and we cut the Ukrainian Nazis off, they'll turn around and try to attack us.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That was a friend of mine a couple of months ago, and I came to that conclusion because yeah, it's a repeat because
Hmm.
it's a proxy war. It's a proxy war, like it in the '80s, like it was, like it is today, and then you know basically it's blowback. What not 9/11? It was a result of what the U.S. did in the 1980s
Against the Soviets, the Russians again,
yeah, against the Soviets.
in Afghanistan. Yeah.
And now and the Islamists, not Islamic, but the
Hmm.
radical elements, that kind of morphed in with the Taliban government and the Al Qaeda. They housed them and everything. That's what happened, and we didn't need to be there for 20 years at all. We didn't need to be in Iraq. We did, we did.
Yeah.
There was no. The Bush administration did everything they could to justify this worldwide war on terrorism. We're
There
in
was
a
there
today.
was a Bush administration report about how they wanted to invade 7 countries in like a 5 year period when they took over. This is before 9/11. It was Afghanistan, it was Iraq, it was Syria, it was I think
Iran,
Iran,
North Korea,
North
probably.
Korea, yeah, and some other country. We're in all those countries right now today. So Obama continued Bush's plan and invade Libya. That's the other one.
Yeah, yeah,
We're in all those countries today. Mm.
absolutely. And yeah, I discovered an obscure streamer online by the name of Superpower Broadcast, who actually echoes neoconservative foreign policy. He's like a self-described neoconservative, and he's like echoing Bush Cheney neoconservative foreign policy directive, and he's like
Mm.
upfront about it. I'm like, wow, even a lot of normie Republicans are a little bit ashamed of that today.
Well, he probably, I never heard of him. Probably not gonna get many views. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he's got a little over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and a
oh
little over
wow.
1,000 on Twitter. I've been trolling him a little bit because I'm like, okay, this guy needs to be trolled. So, but
That's
yeah, but we're gonna have the same problem in the 21st century with 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 the weapons going into the hands of some of these neo-Nazi fucks. We're gonna have a Nazi problem in the 21st century.
which is the whole point. Because if once we get out, once the Ukraine thing is over, hopefully it's over at World War III. But let's say once it ends, those Nazis still have all those weapons, and they still have all those cluster bombs and planes and whatever we gave them. They're gonna try to use it against either us or some of our allies, in Europe.
Yeah, they will, and they'll smuggle them here. And it's nothing scarier here in America than a bunch of losers, Klansmen or neo-Nazi skinheads types and neo-Nazi groups with some of these weapons. I mean, it's a
Could be,
scary thought.
could be. It could be. I mean, it's like because it's a repeat of what happened in the '80s with the United States' proxy war against the Soviets in Afghanistan. We just handed all these weapons and training to the Mujahideen, which later turned into Al Qaeda, and I think half of Mujahideen became a Taliban, and the other half became Al Qaeda, which Al Qaeda did 9/11. And actually, that was mostly Saudis. But that's a whole nother conversation. I know the Saudis did 9/11, but
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So they went out of their way to blame Saddam Hussein, who was secular,
Yeah.
And and that's the thing when it comes to Middle Eastern politics, how people don't understand things. The more secular, even if they're a dictator, the more secular the leaders are, the more less likely that they're going to, even if they are committing terrorism, they're going to be easier to negotiate with since they're secular than they are if they're
Hmm.
fundamental.
Yeah. But the fundamentalists are easier to control because we give them weapons and we give them money. They'll do what we tell them to do.
And the United States have actually has funded a lot of fundamentalist movements. The
Hmm.
Ba'ath movements in the Middle East, what I guess they call it pan-Arab nationalism, which was basically populist left sort of Arab-style nationalism that was in parties like the Ba'ath Party in Iraq. I guess it was called the Arab Socialist Union in Egypt, I believe it was called, places like that. I guess the PLO, when it was a thing, was under that category.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the political party Gaddafi belonged to, but I guess that he would fall under that. He
Hmm.
did fall under that category.
Well, they killed Gaddafi because he had the nerve to say to get off the petrodollar. He wanted Africa to get off the petrodollar, and we couldn't allow that. So Obama, listening to Hillary Clinton, invaded in Libya, killed Gaddafi, and now today it's a slave state.
Yeah,
They're slaves,
yeah.
and in Tripoli, they're selling slaves. I'm like, leave
I've always
Gaddafi in power. What the fuck? You guys ruined Libya.
Yeah, because Libya was the most prosperous country in Africa, had
Yeah.
universal basic income, had
Hmm.
universal health care, had a relatively high, it had a pretty high standard of living, kind of like
Yeah.
people in Kuwait. It would have and with all Saudi Arabia's faults, they do have a high standard of living because of the oil, or the oil that they have, and so the economic security they have, I don't have a problem with. I just have a problem with the
Yeah.
social question. But the thing about Libya was also they dismantled all their biological chemical weapons, and they were becoming kind of assimilating a little bit with the West, even though they were trying to get off the petrodollar. They weren't particularly hostile toward the West anymore. And I've and Big Man Crab might like what I'm about to say. I sort of equated Gaddafi with Africa's Tito. Like Tito of Yugoslavia. I sort of said
Uh-huh.
I sort of, think that Gaddafi was sort of Africa's Tito in many ways.
He was in power in Libya for 50 years nearly before they killed him, and
Yeah,
Libya was great. I mean, they had a lot of progressive things that Kyle Kalinske wishes that we had, and he's dead because he had the nerve to want to get off the petrodollar. That's the only reason why he's dead.
yeah,
Along the same thing with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Syria was in pretty good shape under him for years. I mean, you can go to Syria secular, basically. Now these fundamentalists try to take him out. It didn't work. I mean, he's still in power, but he got reelected again a couple of years ago. Like
let me
reelected again. I don't know how the elections work over there, but it's legitimate. But he's reelected again. So
I have to tell people when it comes to Syria, he protects the Christians, he
yeah,
protects the Jewish minority there, he protects the various Muslim groups there from, and they're and it's a secular government under him. He
yeah,
may not be the nicest person around, but considering all the alternatives there are out there, if you ask me, do I support Assad? I said, given the options that exist out there, he would be, if you want to use the term lesser evil, he'd be the least bad option.
yeah,
So I make no apologies over that, and to solidify my point, when you hear John Bolton saying that we need to support Al Qaeda to ouster Assad, you know
mm-hmm.
how long somebody it can be on an issue right there.
Same. Bolton wants to make the same mistake we did in Afghanistan by supporting Al Qaeda again. It's like it's
Exactly.
like it's like this. Assad, it was in the Syria was in great shape under him. I mean, he's a secular government like Saddam Hussein, like Muammar Gaddafi. All these leaders that in Africa and Middle East that they're all fantastic in the sense that it's they're better than Saudi Arabia, basically.
What
The Saudis, ever since World War II, the Saudis have been protected by the U.S. That's the reason why they're as powerful as they are. Without us, they would have been wiped off the map years ago by Iraq and by Syria and stuff, because they want that land too, because it's full of oil.
I mean, we have the problem we have with Iran today goes back to 1953 when the CIA
Hmm.
toppled. What was it, Mohammed? I cannot pronounce it.
Mossadegh,
Mossadegh, thank you. I've always
Mohammed Mossadegh. Hmm.
and because they weren't a quote unquote communist government, but they were a left wing government that was pro Soviet adjacent, I guess you could say,
Yeah,
and the U.S. decided, oh, we're going to go and solve this little problem right here, and
yeah.
then
He came into power in the early '50s, and a year or two later, he was gone. I mean, it was like he was overthrown.
and then people when people get mad at me about Iran, they're like, well, the Shah was a good man, blah blah. Well, here's the thing about the Shah. The Ayatollah was actually an early supporter of the Shah. And a lot of people don't even realize that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and only and the Shah was a bad man. So was the Ayatollah. But the U.S. is the reason why Iran is the way it is today. And then they
yeah.
go on to sit there and harass that country. Now, I don't like the government. I mean, and you don't have to like it. I mean, no government. There's not a government in the world that's above criticism. But a lot of the problems we have today exist because, I mean, look what look at the CIA. I mean, I think that they are. Well, I won't. I'm not going to go with too much. I could get in trouble. We just say I find them very problematic.
No, yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that and let people interpret that. Yeah, they are very problematic as far as helping societies be more free, which really. But
You know,
Eddie, yeah,
the CIA was created by was it Roosevelt or Truman? Trying to think.
under Truman, it became. I think it was
Roosevelt who started it, and then
it was another organization.
yeah,
And I forgot
yeah,
what it was called.
Office of Special Management under Roosevelt during World War II, and then it turned to something else under Truman, and then the Eisenhower became the CIA basically. But it goes back to Roosevelt, the FDR, which is Kyle Kalinski's favorite president, which he won't talk about that part that he created the CIA.
Japanese, I mean, too. I mean, FDR had his faults too.
Yeah, he interred the Japanese. The New Deal. It was what's the right word I'm looking for? The New Deal didn't apply to black people because the Dixie Democrats helped him pass it, and black people couldn't benefit from it. He had his flaws, definitely, but
They didn't benefit from the work projects, but there were race neutral programs from the New Deal, like Social Security, that they were able to.
yeah,
And there were some. Eleanor Roosevelt was sympathetic to the movement, so there was like, for example, there was supposed to be a scheduled march on Washington in 1943, similar to the March on Washington in 1963, where MLK did his "I Have a Dream" speech.
yeah.
But Philip Randolph was supposed to set up a march in DC that year, and what happened was FDR was very nervous about this march, and he made a plea to A. Philip Randolph to call off the march. And he told him, if you call off the march, I promise you, by executive order, I will desegregate Washington, D.C. And so he kind of called off the march. So D.C. was desegregated in 1943, very early on there, which, it sounded like a half-assed measure, but it kind of almost made it easier for something like a 1963 march in Washington to take place.
Yeah, I see that point. I never thought of it that way. I was like, that desegregating DC. He stopped because he's running for re-election in 45. So he was worried about, obviously, if there's a march in Washington when he's president in the middle of the war, it's like it's not going to look good for him politically. So it's like, don't march, I'll desegregate Washington at least. So that's good enough. So it was good enough for that point. But we're right in the middle of World War II, though. So
I think it did kind of spark the one of the many sparks that helped the birth the modern civil rights movement. So
And Brown v. Board of Education, like 10 years after that, ended up desegregating schools, and
yes,
but to be fair, you're right. That FDR did begin that movement, but I thought he should have done so much more. But at least he did something. You could say wouldn't be charitable to FDR, but the interning of the Japanese to me is like the most unacceptable thing he did throughout his presidency. Like, holy crap, for no reason.
exactly.
These are Japanese Americans, like they're Japanese nationals.
Yeah, the Japanese Americans that were living here were certainly not supportive of what
Yeah.
was going on
Hmm.
over there and all of that. And I think in World War One, I think in World War Two they did the same thing to some first generation Germans and Italians here too.
Yeah, it was an internment, but they rounded up a bunch of Germans and Italians and just they just in case there's a possibility they can support these governments so that we're at war with, so let's just lock them up. So it's like the same. We in America, we've always, even though in theory it's supposed to be pro immigrant and pro bring us your masses, bring us your dirty whatever that says in the Statue of Liberty. In theory, that's what it's supposed to be, but we've always been anti-immigrant. Always. Looked out at our history. The Italians got shit in the 20th century, the Germans, then it became the Japanese and during the 40s, then today's the Mexicans and the Central Americans and Latinos, so we've always been anti-immigrant, just that we've changed the immigrant we hate.
Yeah, and it's really weird because there was a time that an Irishman was considered non-white in this country.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
early 20th century, yeah.
yeah, and then Italians were considered a non-whites at one point. So and even now, some there are some right wing white people that are like they're starting to say, well, maybe some Hispanics are, or I mean it's just they do like these mental gymnastics and all of that.
Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican by nationality. Both my parents from Puerto Rico. I get the Puerto Ricans are not U.S. citizens things all the time, or not a part of the United States. I'm like, it's a
I'm
part of
half
the United States.
my mom's Puerto Rican.
Oh, okay, so yeah, Puerto Rican. All right,
My
that's
dad's
something
American,
new.
but my mom's Puerto Rican.
Okay,
Yeah.
something new I learned about you. But yeah, I mean, I get the whole Puerto Ricans are not a part of the United States. Puerto Rico, like, really? Even if, let's say, I'm still American. They want to be. Oh, you should be deported back to Puerto Rico. It's like, oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I just take a 3-hour flight there right now and go there.
Donald Trump said that AOC should be deported back to Puerto Rico. She was born in the United States, and her parents were American citizens.
As soon as and the other reason why we became citizens, I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to tell the audience. The reason why we became citizens is because of World War One. They needed more bodies. They needed more people to die in World War One. So they're like, oh, Puerto Ricans, yeah, let's just make them U.S. citizens and send them to World War One and let them die in the front lines. That's the only reason we became citizens. And most Puerto Ricans didn't even want it at the time, but we forced it on them anyways. Oh, here's U.S. citizenship. Okay, now go to World War One and die for us, the capitalists. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. What part of Puerto Rico you're from?
My parents are from Santa Isabel, which is a small city in the southern coast.
Okay.
And
Um,
yeah.
my mom's family are from a town just outside of Fajardo, called Saba.
Oh, okay.
Ever been
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I've been there once, I think. When last time I went to Puerto Rico, I toured the island, so I'm pretty sure we passed by there.
Yeah, it's on the. I think if I remember it correctly, it's like on the sort of like on the northeast coast area.
Uh huh.
It's like maybe about an hour. I haven't been there in 20 years. Probably about an hour east of San Juan.
Yeah, it's like, excuse me. It's like yeah, it's not far from San Juan. I was about to say.
Yeah, so yeah, it's funny. There's a YouTube video of somebody driving through Saba, and I'm like, wow. And at a certain point, I'm like, and my parents, they're driving by my parents' house because my mom and dad lives there now. My dad's American.
Oh,
When they
okay,
when they retire, they moved to Puerto Rico,
okay.
and they live in the house that they inherited from my grandparents.
Oh,
Um,
my, I have a piece of land in Puerto Rico too, in Santa Isabel, where my aunt and my uncle live in a pretty big house there, like 2 bedroom, but it's a pretty big one. And it's like, hey, you can come down whenever you want. You need a place to live. I'm like, okay, but there's no internet, so how am I supposed to do this? But yeah, I mean, I can always go down there. Probably when I'm retired, I'll probably go down there too. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful island, and I'm gonna tell you because my father was drafted to Vietnam in '64, I think it was when he was 18. No, 17. And it's like he told me this story. He told me the story like right before he died, and I'm like, oh wow. But anyways, I'll tell you real quick. He was drafted. He had to. His father, my grandfather, drove him to Ponce. There was a military base in Ponce at the time, which is not far from where we live. And he dropped him off. They went to this building, stripped him butt naked, butt ass naked. They all had to do jumping jacks, do push ups, and then after that, they touched his penis for some reason. They were doing this. I'm like, that's weird, but okay, whatever. And then they realized my father had he had deformed arms. When he did this, he couldn't do it like this, so his arms were like kind of like that. So they sent him home. It's like, yeah, we don't need you, so just they're disabled, so go. And they did. And they discharged him. So it's like he could immediately he picked up what was it? No, eventually somehow this is 1964, so it's before phones. No, they had the rotaries, didn't they?
your rotary phones.
Yeah, so he had to go to a store and and use one of their phones and call his father, my grandfather. It was like, come pick me up. It was like, oh, you didn't let you like good, It was like he was so happy when he walked out of there because everybody knows if you're Puerto Rican, you go on the front lines and you're gonna die. You're not gonna make it. So if he went there, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Butterfly effect, see?
Yeah, my dad met my mom in late 65. My dad was in the U.S. Navy. He was a
Uh,
lieutenant in the Navy, and my mom worked at the Roosevelt Road. My mother was a librarian assistant at the base at Roosevelt Roads,
uh-huh.
and and they met and then they got married. Lucy, who's been on my show, we shared the story with her. She thought it was funny, but I'll tell you about the 19 when they got married in 1967. My mom and dad and
Hmm.
the priest that married my mom and dad had a scandal.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's not the scandal yet people would think.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a newspaper reporter in town, and he fell in love with her, so he left her.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that was scandal. That was
Well,
the
yeah, that's a scandal, especially in
yeah,
Puerto Rico,
yeah,
1967. My
yeah.
parents married in '79,
Oh,
so yeah, 1979. In the only church in town. So it was like it's a small town. To this day, that church is still standing. So yeah, they married in '79. They were together 10 years,
mm.
and they got divorced. My father was an alcoholic, so
Parents have been married since '67, and they're still together. Actually, I'm picking them up. Day after tomorrow.
okay.
Yeah, she's had a series of mini strokes, so
Oh,
and there's a specialist they need to see, so I got to go and pick
okay.
them. So I do a Saturday broadcast for KRTD Media.
Uh
Normally
huh.
I won't be doing it this coming Saturday, so
Oh yeah. I mean, take care of your mom. That's first priority.
yeah,
Right.
they were okay with it. So
Yeah.
yeah. So there's that. I lived in a little town for 2 years called Salinas, just outside of Ponce,
Oh yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
from 1970 to 72. I moved there when I was 1 year old.
Wow.
Yeah, 1 year old. Yeah, because my dad's taught at Fort Allen for for a little while over there before they decided to move back to North Carolina and everything. So I got memories of Puerto Rico in the early '70s, still in the back of my mind and everything. And in fact, I remember the house in Salinas right down to the layout, and they were like, "You remember that?" But I said, "I sure do."
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you remember where you grew up, so, or at least something, where your memories come in. I remember the house I grew up in too, or the apartment, but yeah, I mean, you remember that stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, I remember taking those road trips, and I remember riding around those mountainous areas, riding into the cloud. It was like remember just driving into the clouded areas up in the mountains and all of that.
I
I
did that last time I was there. It's like, oh wow, we have no signal up here. The car breaks down. Well,
yeah,
of course the car breaks down, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, they blame me for it. It's like, how am I supposed to know the car breakdown? I mean, I said, what do we do if the car breakdown? That's all I said, because I had no signal. So it's like, I had no signal on my phone. Nobody had a signal, so we had to walk. There was like a club not far from where we at, luckily, and we were able. They had a landline, able to call and get a tow truck up there. It took a while. It was cold up there because it's top of the mountains.
of
So,
course, yes.
so we were like, oh shit. It was like, because I had shorts and like a t-shirt. It was hot until we got up to the mountains. I realized, oh, it's cold up here.
And they do have cold weather a little bit in the winter months. I mean, like in
Yeah.
the evenings. I mean, it can get
Yeah.
down. Yeah, it can get down into the 50s.
hmm
At times. I mean, I know a lot of people that are like, "You're kidding me." No, it's
No,
true.
it can get cold in January, February, especially in December, January stuff,
Yeah,
especially at night.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but anyway, I was gonna say, yes, I haven't been there in 20 years, so I'm probably gonna go sometime in the near future. I gotta
Okay.
Portugal. I gotta take next year. That I
Okay.
gotta get that out of the way first. If I do go, I gotta check my finances and all that. But I,
The
yeah, I
the
got
last time I went was 2017, right before Hurricane Maria, like 6 months. Trump was
2000.
just 17, right before Maria, like 6 months before, and Trump was just inaugurated, and I mean, and my aunt showed me this nice boardwalk they were building. It's like, this is going to open soon, and next year when you come back, you can come here and have a great time. Maria came, destroyed that. It's not there to this day. I haven't rebuilt it since, but yeah, it was tragic because nice. They did a good job on that boardwalk, and it's gone. And then Trump went down there and did the infamous thing with the toilet thing, or the where he did that with paper towels and
Oh
stuff.
my god, that was
That was
obnoxious.
cringe. That was cringe. It was like, oh, dude.
Oh my god, that was.
Like,
You know what? I would have saw him in a better light if he would have taken a look at Puerto Rico and decided to go and send federal money and forgive the debt that they have down there,
oh
and
god, yeah.
use that to upgrade the infrastructure and everything. He would have been very popular if he would have done that. It would have been very easy for him to do that.
He's
Yeah.
first become president. He was still somewhat popular. He had the House and the Senate. He could have done it, but he's one, far too lazy. Two, he's not. His base wouldn't be too happy with him because we're Latino and we're Puerto Ricans, and they don't like us for the most part. Three, it's just it. And his donors wouldn't have been too happy if he tried to forgive all the debt Puerto Rico has, because most of those debt belongs to vulture capitalists and they want their money. So it's like he wouldn't have done it. It'd been nice if he did it, but I know he
Yeah,
wouldn't have
I
done
mean,
it. So
I'm just saying I would have respected him
yeah,
more.
yeah, I agree. I would have respected him too more. Yeah, but I'm just saying that wouldn't happen for those reasons. But
Yeah. So, but anyway, so it was, I was like, he had opportunities for me to open my mind about him, and he just couldn't do it.
the stimulus checks were nice, but
Yeah.
in the CARES Act, they transferred all the wealth to the billionaires anyway. So we got like, we got peanuts or table scraps, not even, but it was something.
Yeah. We didn't
Yeah.
even get that with Biden as president. I mean,
We got the $2,000 check thing pisses me off still, even though it's the beginning of his presidency. I'm like, hey, we're good. If you like Ossoff and the other guy, Warnock in Georgia, was it Georgia?
yeah, Georgia.
Yeah, he's like, oh, if you elect these two senators and give us the majority, we'll give you $2,000 checks. They get elected, everybody believes him. Oh yeah, by the way, it's 1,400 because you already got 600 from Trump in December. I'm like, you goddamn liars. I knew they were lying. I knew they were BSing us, but still, I mean, people believed them. And you're like, you got $1,400, so it's supposed to be 2,000. You promised 2,000. It's like, oh well, you got 600 from Trump. Like, yeah, you said 2,000. You didn't say 1,400. You see what it's like? They did a dirty little trick there, and then I knew they were lying even before then. But a lot of people believed in them, and immediately Biden like that say, "Oh no, by the way, again 1,400. Sorry."
Democrats, this is where the Democrats fuck up because even they wouldn't give us Build Back Better, which I hold that against them. I hold that mightily against them. All they had to do to keep their majority. And you know the reason why their majority, the reason why the Republicans had a slight majority and not a landslide is because they're nuts. But the thing is that the Democrats, all they had to do prior to the election was to go and give another stimulus check of, you know, maybe $1,500 or $2,000 to the American people. Say, hey, you know, we know that we're still under COVID. Boom, $2,000. The Democrats would still have their majority in the House, and they might have actually gained a seat or two in the Senate.
All they had to do was expand Social Security for everybody. UBI really is Social Security expansion. Let's just call it what it is. And if they would have done that, they would be in the majority for throughout and right now, and the Republicans wouldn't be able to touch it because it'd be extremely popular. So, but they didn't because they didn't want to do it. Instead, they wanted to continue like this. So Republicans get back in power so they can be in the minority and virtue signal and grandstand, talking about how put us back in power and we'll do everything. But meanwhile, I put them back in power, they do nothing. So it's like the same game being played over and over again. So.
Yeah, I that's all they love to do. And I can guarantee you, Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton were happy that Roe versus Wade was overturned, and I am actually convinced that the Republicans were a little upset because the Republicans, if Roe versus Wade would still be the law of the land, that the Republican victory would have been a little bit larger because there would have been people out there that vote Republican that they still like their abortion rights. So there is that. And then, but now the Democrats got everything they want. They don't have to talk about Medicare for all. They don't have to talk about Build Back Better. All they have to do is say, you know, vote for us. We're going to restore reproductive rights and protect you from those big, bad, evil Republicans.
But they won't codify Roe versus Wade into law. So they had to do. But they won't do it because they want to use it as a campaign tool and a fundraising tool. And what they're telling their voters is, oh, keep voting for us for president. We'll appoint enough justices eventually, and then we can overturn the decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. I forget right now, and we can bring it back.
Yeah,
but that takes decades.
Vote harder, in other words. And I'm done. I'm
done.
I mean, here's the thing. I would never vote Republican. I
wouldn't either.
But the Democrats, they're the other Republican Party too. They're the other Republicans. So, you know, they both can go to hell. I mean, really.
I'm voting for Cornel West, and
I'm voting for Cornel West too. And just if she was allowed to run, because I mean she's not allowed to run because she's not an American citizen, but if she was able to become a candidate, a VP, I would say Shama Sawant would be awesome as the running mate for. So I don't know who would be an ideal running mate for Cornel West at this point.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, as long as it's not Howie Hawkins, that's all I care about. But
I'm so disappointed with Howie Hawkins. I voted for him in 2020. But Nico House warned me. He warned me a couple of years ago about him. I had a conversation with him online, and he warned me about him, and I was just like, well, yeah, he likes Tulsi Gabbard, and I know that Howie Hawkins does not like Tulsi Gabbard. That's why he's saying that. But no, he turned out to be
right. Yeah, I mean, I voted for him too, but I was like, it's either that or I voted Green in 2016 for Jill Stein, and as I continue voting Green, hopefully to get to 5% one day, maybe they get matching funds from the federal government and they can go from there. But I hated voting for him too. I didn't really like it. It's like, okay, but we got to get the Green Party to 5%. He did worse than Jill Stein did in 2016, so it was like, oh, that was a waste of time.
Yeah, well, I just couldn't vote for Biden. I almost got vote shamed into doing it because I got a lot of shit for voting for Jill Stein in 2016. They're like, "You caused Trump to win the election." I'm like,
Not true.
Hillary Clinton's fucking sucked.
It's not true.
And Clinton's urged Donald Trump to run in the Republican primaries, and I can
Pied
guarantee,
Piper strategy.
and I can guarantee you, Bernie would have gotten the nomination. The Clintons would still be friends with the Trumps today. They would have been working with Trump behind the scene to make sure Bernie Sanders, with all his faults, they would have made sure that he would have lost that 2016 election.
Oh, they would have. Even if he would have won, Bernie, they still would have sabotaged the administration, because the Clintons are like kings of the Democratic Party. Exactly. The Clintons, the Obamas, so they would have behind the scenes sabotaged Bernie's administration. So even if he would have won, what could he have accomplished? Not much, at least in domestic policy.
You ever heard of a book called A Very British Coup?
Yes, I haven't read it, but yes, I've heard of it.
They played the mini series. You can watch it on YouTube for free and everything. The 3 minute the three parts to the series is written in 1981 by Chris Mullins, and then in the UK, Michael Foot in real life was the leader of the Labour Party. He was sort of the Jeremy Corbyn of the time. And so they decided to write a book. Chris Mullins wrote a book about a scenario in the fictional year of 1989, where Harry Perkins, who was a younger man that they was sort of like a pen name basically for Michael Foot, defeating Margaret Thatcher in the fictional year of 89. Prince Charles was King Charles in this fictional novel and everything. And when he won, they were going to do everything they could to bring his government down. It's an interesting story.
Well, that would happen in the 70s, didn't it? With a Labor prime minister. I forget his name, but
Harold Wilson.
Yeah, I think the MI6 sabotaged his administration.
They did it to Go Whitlam in Australia, and the CIA possibly rumored to have murdered Norman Kirk in New Zealand because Norman Kirk was opposed to nuclear weapons testing in the South Pacific.
Yeah, I mean, the MI6 and the CIA, MI6 in Britain has been messing with the Labour Party for years. So it's like, oh, Jeremy Corbyn. Oh yeah, by the way, he's anti-Semitic, so you can't really make him prime minister. Yeah. That was it. It was over.
You go and criticize Israel, you're automatically anti-Semitic. Sure.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but but that was the smear they went with, and unfortunately, it worked. To the point where they had to remove him as leader because they couldn't win. They couldn't get Labour back into power, and they're still to this day not in power. It's the Conservative Party still in power.
And it makes me mad that people believe that. And here's the thing: in 2017, when Theresa May won that election, the only way she could have a government was to reach out to the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland. And the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland are anti-gay and they're anti-Catholic. And that's just as bad as being anti-Semitic. Why didn't anybody call her out on that?
Because he was the establishment in Britain. That's why it's like, oh, it's okay because she needs to form a government, and if she uses them, it's all fine because she'll do what we tell her to do anyway. So, but Corbyn is too much of a wild card, so we have to call him anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and the thing about it is again, but that's going away now. That's no. I mean, it doesn't have the sting that it used to have. It used to be if you criticized this for just a little bit, you were called. I mean, they really used to smear people, but
yeah,
it's actually starting to not. I mean, it's not. It's getting to be less controversial than it used to be, but it's still.
Yeah. Well, the Israeli government is just going too far with their bombing campaigns in Palestine or the occupied territories, whatever you want to call it. They're going too far, which is why even a lot of people in the U.S. are like, yeah, I'm pro-Israel, but at the same time, look, they're killing a lot of innocents, and they're brutally bombing them for no reason, and it's like, and they're invading their mosques and stuff for no reason, and it's like it's harder to support them, but we still have to support them because of our propaganda here in the U.S. I think in New York, it's illegal to even criticize the Israeli government. It's
Half the
ridiculous.
states it's illegal. It's illegal in half the states.
Uh huh. Or
Abraham
else you can't get government benefits if you criticize Israel or government contracts or something like that.
Abraham Foxman from the Anti Defamation League, who was a hardcore Zionist for years, is questioning whether he should continue to support Israel because of the government that exists today. It's so far to the right.
Hmm.
It's the most right wing government that they ever had. It. You even have Abraham Foxman, who used to call people anti Semitic for criticizing Israel. He's like, I don't know if I can continue supporting the country anymore because they're too extreme for when you're too extreme for Abraham Foxman. That's extreme.
You've gone too far.
You've
But
gone too far.
Netanyahu is still in power there, and it's even though he was convicted of corruption, he's still there. It's like, what? I'm still here. What are you gonna do? I got elected again. It's
George,
unbelievable. He's convicted of corruption in Israel. He's still there. He's like, yeah.
George Galloway, he said basically that the government's so far to the right that the parties, there are parties to the right of Likud in there. That is so far to the right that Netanyahu is actually seen as a moderate. That's how far to the right they have gone.
Wow.
When you're to the right of Netanyahu and who's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Labor Party is down to like a handful of seats. I mean, what used to be the left inside of Israel is almost gone. The secular left and
Yeah.
and Meretz, which is even though they're a Zionist party, they're like the nice people that wants everybody to get along and they're like pro peace and all that. They're like out of the government completely.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like really, it's like here in the U.S. There's no left in Washington. Who's the left?
We don't have a Labor Party. The Green Party is not in any elected seats in the House or in the Senate or anything. So it's just kind of like we don't Bernie may have been like the one, but Bernie needs he needs to retire.
He was left in his domestic policy, but he always voted to fund the military industrial complex in the wars. And I justified that when I was supporting by saying, "Hey, look, he's trying to be friendly with the party so they could be more comfortable in nominating him," and blah blah blah. I was completely wrong. I was like, I did I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I even justified his pro war votes.
In a couple of years, 3 years ago, the Amazing Atheist did a video on what went wrong with Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign, and I am inclined to agree with him that there were two people in his campaign. One person was what was good about his campaign. The other person kind of fucked it up for him, and whatever everybody thinks of Breonna Joy Gray today, as the national press secretary, she was urging Bernie Sanders do not endorse Biden. And if you do, make sure you get as much concession out of him as possible. And she wouldn't support Biden herself. I mean, she did not. So and so she was basically saying, Bernie, keep to your independent radical brand. Don't try to be just a slightly better Democrat. Or and Ro Khanna was like, Bernie, try to be a mainstream Democrat, or and so that's what's happened in that campaign in 2020. So I think that Bernie just listened to Ro Khanna just a little bit too much.
The reason why Bernie fought so hard in 2016 was because he hated the Clintons. But once
I can understand that. I can understand.
Yeah, I don't blame him. But I'm glad he did. He went to the convention and eventually endorsed Clinton. But
here's another thing, Bernie. And I mean, I agree with Bernie in the sense, I mean, I hate Biden on policy, but like on a personal demeanor basis, I can understand that he can look at Biden and look at Hillary and probably on a personal level, Biden might seem more likable, but he's horrible. He's still Hillary Clinton on policy. And so he's not my good friend. Biden is not
My
my
good friend, my good friend Joe.
a good
Yeah,
friend.
but yeah, but but he liked Biden, which is why he didn't fight too hard. He endorsed him as soon right after COVID started and everything shut down. He's like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm endorsing my good friend Joe."
Oh, I was so angry, and
No,
that was
I,
when my show started, and I was
mhm.
like, well, I'm going to continue this channel, but I'm just going to just try to just go on with my politics, and it's just going to try to go beyond Bernie.
Yeah, you have to at this point because he's not running again. He's what in his he's in his 80s. He's not going to run again, and now he's completely behind the administration to the point where he's endorsed them even before AOC did. Excuse me, and it's like, yeah, you have to be done with Bernie. If you're still on the Bernie train, then you're just a establishment Democrat. That's what Bernie is now.
Yeah, and I'm going to be inclined to agree with that. Yeah, Bernie, 1990s, Bernie up to the year 2016. Sure, I was the original Bernie bro. I admit that. But here's the thing. You know, I would say the wake up call. I would say I was still relatively pro Bernie until I would say maybe about a year and a half. Last year and a half, I just started weeding off with the Bernie cult.
Yeah, after 2016 and he endorsed Clinton, I was like, yeah, he's not going to fight. I mean, I know he's going to run again in 20, and I was like, I'll support him, but it's like I'm not giving any more money in 20. It's like I gave money in 16, and I was like, I'm disappointed, and I was like, no, I'm not giving money in 20, but but I still nominally support him voting in the primaries. Hell, I didn't even get a chance to vote in the primaries because he dropped out so early.
I gave him thousands of dollars since 1990 over the
Wow.
years for his reelection in the House, his reelection in the U.S. Senate, his presidential runs. I mean, I've actually given probably a culmination of several $1,000s over the years to that man.
Uh,
That
yeah, and he's a creature of Washington. He was there way too long. Even though in the 90s he was one of the few fighters, and but it wore him down and wore him down. Washington wore him down to the point by the time he ran for president, he was a creature of Washington. It took decades, but eventually he got there. It took AOC a few years for becoming a creature of Washington, maybe 2 years before
that
he
makes her,
completely.
that makes her worse in that regard. At least Bernie was resistant for a long time.
Yeah, he's able to resist for decades.
Now,
I mean,
uh-huh.
I remember the picture. And the thing was in the 90s where he's talking in the House floor and he's by himself. Not a soul is there in Washington or in the Congress, at least. He's by himself talking. I was like, geez, I mean, he's a real. I thought because of that, he's like, yeah, he's a real fighter. Just that he's by himself in Washington then.
Yeah, I tell you what. My mentality was like this at one time. A decade ago, and back in the 1990s, I was like the hysterical teenager in 1965, seeing the Beatles walk into Shea Stadium. Yay! Bernie! When he was on TV, whatever. Now, when Bernie's on TV, whatever, I'm like, oh, whatever.
He's a creature of Washington, and Trailer Park is right. He's a part of the swamp.
Yeah.
He's a creature of Washington.
Shanda's online. Hey, how are you, Shanda?
I noticed that. That's why I wanted to mention that. But she's right. Yeah, he is part of the swamp.
Yeah.
And after 2016, I was so disappointed. I'm like, yeah, I'll support him in 20, but I know he's going to endorse Biden anyways. And he won. He won the first 3 states. Oh no, technically Pete won Iowa, but
No,
again, I know, but I'm just saying technically he won Iowa, but by like that much. But I know Bernie won because they messed with the app and stuff.
You will always be Pete the Cheat to me.
Yeah. So he won. Let's say he won the first 3 states, and I'm like, okay, he's going to lose in South Carolina. But what he needs to do, he needs to start getting endorsements from the other candidates. He never did anything. He just sat on his laurels, like I'm going to do well Super Tuesday. Biden won South Carolina. And by Super Tuesday, he was done. They crushed him. The party crushed him.
Here's the thing. He was rigged twice. It was sort of like sneaking behind the scenes, and in 2016.
I gotta turn on my light.
No problem.
It's dark. All right.
Yeah, it's 2019, 2016, but in 2020, I mean, it was like overtly right in front. I mean, for all of us to see, I mean, it's like Obama made those phone calls, and all the big contenders dropped out, and then
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren stayed in the race just long enough to fuck Bernie in Massachusetts. So
Uh
she
huh.
used to be. I will always look at her and call her the snake. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, she
yeah,
was terrible.
yeah. So I
Uh,
mean,
she never endorsed Bernie in 2016. Apparently, she rumored to have a meeting with Hillary Clinton, and basically Hillary Clinton say, if you don't endorse anybody, and if you do that and I win, I can give you a spot in the administration. Allegedly, that's what the meeting they had.
yeah, yeah,
And that's when I realized Warren is not a really progressive. She's just a politician. She
no,
just he just did this is like, okay, now I'm a progressive.
she's a
Even though back, if you
brain.
remember back in the '80s, she was a Reagan Republican. She loved Reagan.
She left the Republican Party because they were so far to the right, and then she might have been a sincere progressive decade ago, but she just kind of slid to the center. They all eventually. This is the Democratic Party is a graveyard where progressive ideas die.
Yeah,
You got to and I have realized voting for Democrats part time doesn't work. Voting for the Democrats all the time doesn't work. It may not even work to vote third party, but you know what? At least when you're voting third party, I mean, you need to at least I had that option of a protest vote, and I
yeah,
was and I
you
was
need
thinking
that option.
and I was thinking of never voting again, but Cornel West running, I was like,
Oh, I had no plans on voting for president. Maybe congressional seats and stuff, but until he started to run, I'm like, oh, okay, somebody I can vote for at least and be happy with my vote.
I'll be happy when I vote for Cornel West. I love Cornel West. So
Here's the I'm hoping that his name recognition gets the Green Party to 5%.
me too. That will change
Yeah.
everything in
Hmm.
this country. That the Democrats and Republicans will have to they will have to be like, damn it, the Green Party, we're going to have them in the debates now, and and then they'll have federal fundings and
Hmm.
matching funds and all of. I mean, it would change. It would be a game changer. And no longer will people be like lecturing us as much. You go and vote for them. It's just going to help. And which is a stupid point because if somebody on the right votes for the Constitution Party or if they vote for the Libertarian Party, those are votes that would have potentially gone to the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, but Republicans are not saying that to their constituents because
Come
they
on.
know that no, but they know they're scared of their base though, so they don't want to alienate those people. So that's why they're not doing it
Yeah.
as much as Democrats though.
You're right. They are scared of their base, and we're not. And here's the thing: the difference between, let's say, the United States and France. The American people are scared of our government, but the government of France are scared of the people, and it's a beautiful thing I see in France. I
That,
mean,
that here's the thing with the French. I remember during the lead up to the Iraq War, the French were against it, and they were called cowards and weaklings and pathetic by us. And it turned they're like, really? These are the same French that overthrew their king and murdered everybody against their revolution, and they were brutal. These are the French. These are not weak people usually.
they're not,
They're
and they turn out to be right. And
yeah.
here's how I remember somebody getting ignorant with me. They're like, yeah, it's just like you to support those socialists, that socialist Jacques Chirac. I was like, Jacques Chirac is actually conservative, and I explained it. And then they were like, well, yeah, I guess, but those conservatives in Europe, they're they're kind of like the liberals here. I say, yeah, the Overton window's a little further left over there.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, it's like in the UK. There's no chance of even conservatives. There's no chance of changing up the what's that called the medical the NHS, the National Health Service. Yeah, there's no chance. They can't. They want to do it. They want to overthrow it and put private hospitals and private insurance in charge, but the people won't let it happen. It's so popular. The
if
NHS.
they do it, they will never, ever, ever govern the UK
No,
again.
they'll be
They'll
done as a party.
away at it. They'll chip away at it.
They'll
But
try. Yeah, yeah.
they'll never, ever, ever see a Tory government again. So I dare them to try it. Yeah.
It's like here in America, Social Security.
Yeah, Medicare for all. Don't go far enough. I would like a UK style national health service, but fully functional, not
Yeah,
the way.
that's the issue with trying to do that here in the U.S. Even if we do it, if even if it like happens and the Supreme Court allows it, say it's constitutional, they won't fully fund it. Republicans, especially when they're in power, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, we ran out of money, we gave it all to Ukraine. Sorry, you're kind of fucked with that. So,
Yeah, I sometimes I think something like a constitutional amendment to guarantee medical care for all. I don't know why people don't have that as something to add to the U.S. Constitution.
yeah, we haven't added an amendment yet. This generation, at least, every generation adds an amendment, and we don't really do it because Americans are lazy and complacent. It's like, yeah, we rather what's on TV today. Oh, great, the new episode of The Voice. Okay, we'll watch that. Oh, we have no rights, and they're taking away our First Amendment rights, and they're trying to censor us. So what? I'm just here's a new show I want to see. Or the new movies coming out. The new Mission Impossible, which I won't see, but I'm just saying, that's what people are focused on, not focused on what's going on in Washington or anywhere else in the country.
Yeah. One quick question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a two-parter on Threads. Are you familiar with Facebook Threads or Meta Threads?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't used it.
I just signed on to it yesterday, so
Okay.
yeah. I don't know what I think of it yet. So we'll see how that goes. The second question: do you feel like since Elon Musk took over Twitter that there's more free speech?
No, it's just there's maybe a tiny bit of extra, like I'm not worried about getting banned because I say like I don't want to take the COVID jab anymore, but there's still people getting banned on Twitter for no reason. There's still accounts getting banned.
Leftists,
Yeah,
it's leftists, and I tell
yeah,
people leftists are being sought after on Twitter, and I tell people bringing Trump back on Twitter, which I have no problem with, but bringing
yeah.
Trump back on Twitter and banning the left isn't free speech.
No, because there's still people getting banned, and they introduced like new terms of service and stuff where they're allowed to ban people, pretty much. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing as the original ownership, except that I don't have to worry about getting banned if I say something against the COVID narrative. So that's the only real difference.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to have to go in a second, but
Okay.
let's do some of the people here on the chat line. Let's see here. We have Tommy from Tommy Nation Politics. What's up, guys? Willie, your music sounds like a video game. That is correct. That's Ken Arroyo. He was in the band Smeghead. Smeghead's no longer a thing, but they contribute to the music on this show, and he's actually going to be a guest on the show sometime in the near future. So,
Okay.
yeah, I would say he's got the website. I mean, the website and the YouTube channel out. I tell people go ahead and check out the channel. Let's see, Warren.
Warren.
Yeah, Willie is a video game. Hey guys. Hey Warren,
Hey,
how are you?
what's up?
All right.
Hopefully, he's still there.
Yeah, sounds good so far. Meaning that there is a sound. So
Yeah, the sound sounded good to me. So
that's good. I'm glad. I've been having audio issues with my StreamYards or the computer. I'm not quite sure which end is causing problem. So, all right. It sounds fine to me, says Tommy. Bula, sorry about 4th of July. I got too drunk for all the wrong reasons and passed out. Not been drunk in a while.
uh-huh.
I just don't have the energy to, Domination politics. Don't worry, bud. Willie is singularity of a black hole. I just explained the background here. Yeah. Yeah. I just decided to try something new.
Yeah, I mean it's
Randy Rainbow is still rush gating. It's embarrassing as a gay man to see. Yeah. And that's another thing. Gays are more persecuted in the Ukraine than they are in Russia.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah. But Putin, in order to stay in power 10 years ago, passed all these anti-gay laws, which is why he got their reputation. But Ukrainians even worse. So.
Yeah, and it's an Eastern European thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ukraine was denied NATO membership. How funny is it that you got? Excuse me. I'm sorry. Ukraine
Fine.
was denied NATO membership. How funny is that, you guys?
Yeah, of course they were.
Yeah,
If Ukraine gets into NATO, it's World War III. The Russians are invading.
we're all done for.
Yeah.
It would be
The
just
Russians made it clear. If NATO gets in, I mean, if Ukraine gets in NATO, that's it. They're bringing the full might of their military onto Ukraine.
and it'll be a matter of hours and at the most days before we're all roasted in a nuclear exchange.
Yeah.
She raised a fuck us, referring to ruckus.
Yeah, I see. I get what Warren's
I
saying.
remember that from the Jimmy Dorso. It's time to raise a ruckus. I used to love listening to her voice. Now her voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh God, it's terrible.
I did not see a Nazi. I did not. I did not see a Nazi problem in the 21st century. I know the reference there. He said, I did not see that. It's sort of like I did not see that coming. Yeah,
I didn't see it coming either until this is like.
I did not see a Nazi problems. All right. Shanda says, "Yay! I made it to what's up, fams? Hey, what's up, Shanda? I do watch your program, but it's usually after I don't watch it usually while you're on the air because I work graveyard shift. But if I'm up, I do watch your program.
Yeah, I like her. She's cool. It's like, I'm glad she's able to make it at least a little bit.
Yeah, me too. Trailer Park Pundit says, yes, he's part of the swamp. Anybody who gets elected in DC becomes part of that swamp.
Yeah, it's true.
16.
They would
never let third party rise unless they control it. That is a very good point.
Yeah.
Because I guess in other countries where third parties are a little more of a thing, they can be prone to corruption too.
Yeah, I mean, here the deep state runs everything in Washington. Will they allow a third party actually at the 5%?
I'll give you Canada. In Canada, you have the Liberals. They're like a less shitty version of the Democrats.
The Trudeaus.
The Tories in Canada are like a less shitty version of the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And then you have the new Democratic Party, which is supposed to be like our squad, but a little bit better. But they are corrupt too. So, I mean...
Trudeau is like he was worse than Biden. I mean, he did the trucker ban during the trucker protests. He did, he took away their bank accounts. They were terrorists. It was like, dude, you're more authoritarian than we are when Biden is, and it's like, how do you pull that off?
Trudeau's got to go. I mean, honestly, Trudeau's got to go.
It's a couple of Canadians in INN, Yeti Jesus and stuff, and he's like, yeah, Trudeau has to go. He's awful, but he keeps getting reelected. So.
Yeah. I thought you couldn't get any worse than Stephen Harper, but damn, this guy. Trudeau sucks.
Well, he's the second generation. His father is prime minister too. So
his father was a little bit better than him, though. But let's see. I'm trying to think. Now in Canada, the approach toward the truckers in Canada by the left was a little different from here, because here a lot of the shit libs had this, well, the truckers are a bunch of Nazis attitude. But
ridiculous.
In Canada, you had people on the left. The Communist Party of Canada were in solidarity with the truckers.
Well, the Canadians are generally smarter than us, so it's like, oh yeah, I mean, they're at least they're trying to do something economically. Like, okay, let's stand with them. We not agree with them and everything, but let's stand with them. Here in the U.S. is like, they're Nazis. We're not no interest in them.
Let me say hello to the Yankee Tanky.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Yankee Tanky, how are you? Yeah, he was the one that got me convinced to go on Threads.
Okay.
The other day.
I might do Threads at some point. I might open something.
Give it a try.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Like with Getter, that social media that Stephen somebody started. Trump. He's a Trump advisor, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I deleted that account. It was terrible.
Yeah, I'm trying. The only reason I'm on Twitter is just, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're trying to build up this
Yeah, that's
thing. Yeah,
the other reason why I use Twitter too, to build, to promote my stuff and to build up, an audience, hopefully.
yeah, and so in that regard, I'm kind of bound to stay on Twitter,
Yeah, it's the
and
biggest platform, so
yeah,
you would have
and
to.
I got my Facebook page, and I'll go shit post. I can type a little more, there's a little more characters I can type in
Yeah,
there.
on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like, but really with Facebook, it's more like a de facto Instagram page for me. Just
Yeah.
post photos and all of that. So yeah. So anyway, yes, everyone, and I got all your information down on the description box.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that. So thank you. Yeah.
Everybody, please do follow Angel Rivera, the handsome critic. Follow him, give him follow him on Twitter, follow him on Facebook, follow him on YouTube, and I might put down your link tree. You got a link tree, right?
Yeah, it's on my Twitter. It's right there where on my biography. So.
When I get a chance, I'll add it up there.
Uh-huh.
If maybe in the morning when I get home from work, I'm going to work in a little bit.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, follow him on all the appropriate platforms, folks. Please do so. And if y'all like, do you have any further thoughts?
Just I'm doing a show tomorrow, Angel in the afternoon. I stream on Friday afternoon, so I'll be doing that at 2:15. I'm gonna try to get on earlier, in fact, because I have so much to talk about, and Tara Reid goes live at 4 o'clock, so I need an extra half an hour. But for now, it's at 2:15. I'll announce if I go on earlier. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna talk about Apple becoming the first corporation to $3 trillion net worth, which is like insane. Then I'll be talking about Keith Olbermann telling Cornel West to fuck off and over NATO, and Kyle Kalinske, a few stories about him because I can't stand him. So it's like I'm gonna, get into him really. So that'd be tomorrow afternoon, 2:15 for now.
Keith Olbermann. Now that's somebody I can't stand. With that.
And real quick before you,
the worst person in the world.
Yeah, and before you wrap up, I'll tell you, I used to be back in the day in MSNBC. I used to be a big Keith Olbermann fan, and it was like. And he was great from like the Bush administration into like the early Obama administration. Then he was fired. He went to current. He was good there still. I think when Trump was elected, he lost his mind. That's when he turned into what he is today.
Yeah. I used to watch MSNBC. I used to be a fan of Rachel Maddow, and now I can't stand her.
Russiagate really destroyed her reputation, but she made a shit ton of money. That's all she cares about.
She sat there. Do you hear her talking about Rage Against the War Machine?
Oh yeah, she smeared everybody there. They were all, they all had the communist Russian flag for some reason, and they're all right wingers, and it was terrible.
Oh, what is this? Oh, what is this? They were Russian flags and the liberation.
She dedicated 45 seconds to it and just smeared it. It was like, whatever. There's some crazy peoples in Washington. Didn't even call it Rage Against the Machine. She just said, oh yeah, there was a rally in D.C. There was some Soviet flags, and Tulsi Gabbard spoke, so that's a signal to MSNBC fans to ignore it. She's right wing now, so, and other people or no, what's his face? Rand Paul, not Rand Paul, his father Ron, he spoke there too. So it's like just ignore it, just right wingers. That's 45 seconds. Let's move on. That's what she did.
Oh, I met Pasta at the Rage Against the War Machine.
And yeah, I was on Combo Couch like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So, which is why, I've not met him in person, but I've met him, doing this. So,
yeah, I met him in person at Rage Against the War Machine, and I had Friarella Isabel on the show a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
I haven't met her yet, but I've talked to her on Twitter, but not.
Yeah,
haven't met her like this yet. So
yeah, we follow each other on Twitter.
Yeah, she follows me too, so. She's cool.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. I remember I discovered them in 2019. That actually helped me push myself a little further left. As I said, I was, I probably in 2019 at the tail end, I might still have been a little more on the shit Libby side, but I was starting to be pushed a little further left, right there, because.
Yeah.
I would say in 2020, I would say Bernie Tulsi bro. I was like partly for Bernie Sanders, partly for Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. I wanted those two to team up.
Yeah, if Bernie and let's say if Bernie won the nomination, which is not wasn't going to happen. Let's say if he did, if Tulsi was his VP, that'd be my perfect ticket, and I would have gladly voted for it. But I knew it wouldn't happen, so it's like Tulsi kind of maybe endorsed Biden. Oh yeah, vote for Biden, and that's it. She's pretty much gone to the Republican Party ever since. But she's,
Yeah, yeah, and it's just she gets smeared all the time and all that.
yeah,
I don't
when you
agree.
get smeared by the left, you get smeared over and over again. I get the anger and I get the fuck it. I'm going to the other side and I'm going to troll you and I'm going to go on Fox News regularly and troll the libs. So it's like I get the frustration of her getting smeared by the Hillary Clinton types and
Yeah, but
people like her.
what she needed to do, well, I think that what she needed to do, she needed to just lead the Democratic Party, but not be adjacent to the right. I think she needed to go to the left. I mean, there's still people on the right, neoconservatives that don't trust her. There are people out there that think that she's a tanky out there.
Yeah, well, she was a Democrat for years, so there's some Republicans, especially in the right, and like, yeah, you're still a Democrat, and you're just grifting over here in order to get our money and to get our views and stuff. If she would have gone to the Greens or something like that, that would have been interesting. She's high name recognition. She's former Bernie supporter, and that probably could have helped the Green Party even more. If she was there with Cornel West, that would
It would have been a good team in a
yeah.
way.
hmm But she went right instead, unfortunately. So now even if she decides to go to the Greens, who's going to believe her, right? So.
Well, here's the thing. When you're hated by Hillary Clinton and you're hated by Mark Levin and you're hated by the National Review, even Tulsi Gabbard today, that's not a bad place to be from my perspective.
Yeah, she's hated by these pro-war neocon right.
Yeah.
But the most Trump voters like her. I mean, so it's like because Trump hit real quick. His politics is old school paleo conservatism, anti-war, anti-interventionist. His rhetoric. Ultimately, his presidency was the same old neocon Republicans because he hired all of them. He hired the John Boltons and the Elliot Abrams and the there's so many of them in the administration that it was like, oh, what's his face? The Secretary of State, Pompeo, he hired him too. And it was like, the reason why he hired him because they all kissed his ass. Like they were the ones who sucked up to him the most. And he's susceptible type of stuff. So it's like, oh, let's hire these guys who kiss my ass all the time. I like that. So it's like, he's just an idiot, he likes being sucked up to, which is why his presidency was ruined because, he could have maybe been interesting. He might have withdrawn from Syria. He wanted to withdraw from Syria, but the person he put in charge of it didn't do it, and he never followed up. So it's like, oh yeah, we're still in Syria today.
Yeah. I would say one thing. The one good thing about him, he made me laugh.
Yeah, it was entertaining. The way he went after the corporate media was great. Part of me, a small parts of me, hope he gets reelected so I can watch liberal meltdowns on election day, like the Young Turks. I can't wait. I mean, if he gets reelected, the Young Turks will melt down again.
They will. Yeah. Actually, Cenk Uygur praised him twice. Trump twice.
Recently? I haven't seen that.
During the Trump presidency.
Well, yeah, because he had the anti-war stuff. He talked.
Yeah, go ahead.
He had the anti-war stuff when he talked about withdrawing from Syria. Remember correctly, Cenk Uygur did say, "Good, we need to get out of Syria." And if something else too, it was real quick. I mean, I know you got to go, but Kyle Kalinske tried to give credit to Biden for withdrawing Afghanistan. It wasn't Biden; it was Trump. Trump negotiated that withdrawal. Just that Biden followed through on it.
And that is true. And not only is that true, but the right wing were going nuts when that was happening under Biden. And Lauren Boebert wanted to impeach Biden over this, So
yeah, she's an idiot.
War right.
She didn't know that Trump ordered that withdrawal or negotiated that withdrawal with the Taliban. he thought it was. She assumed it was Biden because she assumed Biden's anti-war when he isn't. He's not even close to being anti-war.
No, no, Biden's a neocon. I
Yeah,
mean,
he's a neocon.
yeah, he's a neocon.
Trump negotiated that withdrawal of the Taliban, and then Biden followed through. In fact, he didn't follow through initially. He wanted to move the date to September 11th, if you remember correctly. And then the Taliban was like, "Yeah, we're done. We're just take over the country," and they kind of pushed the U.S. down. We left. That was back in June. And
Yeah,
Kyle Kalinske had to give him credit. It's like, "Oh, Biden withdrew, guys. This is great. He's
this
so
is how
anti-war."
base. Yeah,
This is base. This literally, he said it was. I remember that. It was like, oh, it's that's so cringe. It was Trump who did it. Biden, in fact, tried to move the date, and then the Taliban shoot him away, and the U.S. military is like they cowardly kind of cowered and left, but in
yeah,
embarrassing fashion. They could have just if he would have withdrawn on the day that Trump negotiated with them, then he would have looked good. At least he could have taken credit for it, even though people would have bought it. But unfortunately, he screwed it up. So,
exactly.
and people always tell me, I'm sorry, I know you got to go, but people always tell me that if Trump would have been reelected, he wouldn't have withdrawn. And I'm like, maybe. I'm not saying he wouldn't have, but for now, he gets the credit because he negotiated the withdrawal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and there was the neoconservatives and the right were pissed off with him several times because he showed some restraint. Like they were wanting him to go and do some strikes against Iran, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like,
He killed Soleimani, but other than that, I mean, he didn't do much else with Iran.
that was a war crime what he did with Iran
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Tsunami. But there was a drone. There was an unmanned drone that the Iranians destroyed from the Americans, and the right wing were like, "We need to strike at Iran," and he did not do it because his advisor said there would be like maybe about 150 or 200 people being killed if
Mm-hmm.
he strike, and he figured 200 people being killed for unmanned drone, it's not worth it.
His instincts are anti-war. Problem is, he hires all the wrong people, and then he gets really lazy and doesn't really do the job. So, which is why a lot of our wars continued, and the only country he managed to withdraw from was Afghanistan, which, other than that, I mean, he didn't start any new wars. He did try to overthrow Maduro or Venezuela, but that's a whole so he wasn't perfect, his anti-war record, but
One of the
it's
reasons,
better than most U.S. presidents.
one of the reasons why I don't listen to Vosh, because Vosh was upset with the pullout of Afghanistan.
Oh, of course he was.
Yeah,
Vosh is like one of these neocons, too.
the neocon.
Yeah. I know Kyle Kalinske went on his show and he sucked up to Vosh, so this is after the Jimmy Dore thing. So it was like he's trying to make new friends and stuff. So.
He talked shit about Kyle Kalinske too. He hates
I know. And he went on his show after that and he sucked up to him. Like, dude, what kind of cuck are you? He got cucked off his own show by Bernie. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. That was
Crystal Kyle at the beginning of Crystal Kyle and Friends. He's like Bernie, like, well, I don't want to talk to Kyle. I only talk to Crystal. And Kyle's like, okay, I'll just leave. Like, what a cuck, dude! It's your show. Like, why don't you tell Bernie you talk to both of us, or you can go away? But Crystal was desperate to interview Bernie because she wanted to save his ass because Bernie was having issues at that point. So basically, I'm sure it was Crystal to say, "Kyle, you got to go," and Kyle's like, meekly said, "Okay, Crystal," and then left. Because this is before they started dating or got married. But yeah, I'm sure Kyle was infatuated with Crystal even when he first met her. So.
Yeah, they're funny together when they're in the car and all.
They're ridiculous. They think they're the Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough of the internet.
Yeah. I don't know. Trying to. Was it Compton J from RBN? He says that. What he was at? He said that they're the Jay-Z and Beyonce of the online left.
Oh yeah, I could see that, and I think he did say that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But I called in the Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, the internet, because they think they have influence. Like they're the ones who convinced Marianne to run, and it turned, and it's like that's a terrible idea. She barely got 2% in 2020, and on top of that, she's like Oprah's, religious guru, whatever she was, and it's like. Yeah, I have no interest in her. And then RFK Jr. entered the race, and Marianne was screwed. They didn't expect RFK Jr. into the race. I guarantee it. That's why they were insisted on putting Marianne there in order to, to have a challenge to Joe Biden, and then they can make more money, and they could grift off her. I did with Bernie, and it's like, oh yeah, you didn't expect RFK Jr. to enter the race, and take away all Marianne Williamson's flair or whatever. So yeah, so they're not happy with RFK Jr. Neither of them.
I have nothing against her, but I can't take her seriously. She's just, I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. She's just hard. I mean, she's just so, and I'm a weirdo myself, but gosh, she's weird.
I mean, Crystal, she's a wannabe Rachel Maddow. Seems like she kind of talks like her, and if she would have stayed at MSNBC and never gotten fired, it's possible she could have gotten her own show there.
No, I meant Marianne Williamson is weird.
Oh, Marianne Williamson. I thought you meant Crystal. Okay, yeah. No, she is weird, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and she's wrong on the Ukraine. I mean,
that's unforgivable. If she's wrong, I remember I saw that she went on. I think it was RBN where she talked about that, and it was like, yeah, I'm done. I have no interest in voting for you. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that to me is my red line. If you're pro-Ukraine, funding their Nazis and stuff, yeah, I'm good. I've had enough.
RFK at least is correct on that issue.
Yeah.
He's correct on that issue. He's correct on free speech, Julian Assange. Well, of course, she is correct on Julian Assange. They're both, they're both incorrect to work inside the Democratic Party. They're both, their hyper strong support for Israel is problematic.
Especially RFK Jr. Yeah, I mean, he goes back and forth on that. I mean, it's like I strongly support and love Israel. Let me send out a tweet though, just to appeal to people who aren't, and then I delete the tweet and then go right back to being strong on Israel. So he goes back, he flip flops on that a lot. So.
And then with all those things, now his weakness, his domestic weakness, is he's opposed to Medicare for all, and he's a strong Hillary Clinton supporter. I'm like, that's problematic,
Yeah, I mean, but he's supported by a lot of Republicans, which is interesting. He has a lot of these Republicans on his side, and that's the whole campaign strategy, to get Republicans to switch to Democrats to vote for him in the primary. That seems to be his campaign strategy. So I'm not sure it probably won't work, but it's an interesting strategy for him to have.
He's there are some people that look like they're supportive of him on the left. It sounds like Kim Iverson supports him. Tulsi Gabbard seems to be sympathetic to him, and Max Blumenthal seemed to be sympathetic to him.
Lori Spencer too, the reporter. She also I think she straight up supports RFK. So
I know that the lady in Florida, Jen Perlman, she says she's going to vote for him in the primaries.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought she would be a Marianne supporter, but because she's like kind of that liberal lefty, who supported Bernie. So I was like, oh, she support Marianne. I'm surprised she chose RFK. I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's just kind of listening. I think she said that. If I remember correctly. Yeah, maybe she didn't. I think she said that.
Oh, okay. Because I know
I work radio shift and I listen to these programs, so it's all kind of jumbled up. I think
okay. That. I know she was pro-vaccine, and RFK is kind of, definitely anti-vax. So it's like, I'm surprised she would support RFK. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but
yeah. So anyway, I do have to go to work.
I know you have to go. Yeah. So I guess start talking. It's
not you. It's not me. It's me. It's stuff. Yeah. Up in my mind and everything. So everyone, thank you, Angel, for being here. If you want to stay for a quick minute, I'll talk to you real quick when I sign off here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, everybody, thank you for showing up. If you like what you heard, please press like, comment. Share any content you like on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and I will possibly put a threads link down at some point. Follow me on there too, And remember to always reject corporate media because they have absolutely nothing to offer to us. So until next time, folks, I'm Willie Bragg. I am out of here. Bye-bye.